From the News Channel 5 network, this is Medical Mondays.
Good Monday, everyone. It is Medical Monday here on News Channel 5 Plus. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Carrie Sharp, and I'm joined by Dr. David Gnewikow with Advanced Hearing Solutions. Dr. Gnewikow, thanks for being back here.
Hey, Carrie. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. We always talk about your beautiful office there in Mount Juliet. It is really a great location for folks to get to from all around. Sure.
So we're located, as you said, in Mount Juliet. We're about half a mile or so off the interstate on Mount Juliet Road. Very easy location to access. Proud to be a member of that community. Been there for 12 years and still going strong. I mentioned that your office is called Advanced Hearing Solutions. Tonight's topic is about hearing better, and we welcome your calls. We'll put that number up at the bottom of the screen. This is really your chance for the next hour to call in, ask questions of Dr. David Gnewikow about any hearing difficulties that you're having or maybe a loved one is having. I know he would love to answer your questions and find you some help. And as long as we've been doing the show together, I just realized behind us, the slogan for your office is Hear Life, and that's where it really all starts when people enter the office. Absolutely. And you know, when we have conversations, or when I have conversations with patients, hearing is about so much more than just being able to sit in a sound booth and raise your hand when you hear beep. Hearing is about so much more than maybe being the punchline to the joke that, you know, Dad doesn't hear as well as he used to. It's about life. It's about connecting with people. It's about connecting with the people that you love. On a bigger scale, it's about our health. So yeah, hearing is a big part of life. And I know a lot of older folks perhaps start really noticing that hearing loss when the little ones enter the picture with those little bitty voices. Sure. So I use my dad as an example. Dad had hearing loss for quite some time. My father's also an audiologist. That's how I got into this. So it's bad for me to say that he was an audiologist and still didn't wear hearing aids for the first few years that he noticed some hearing trouble, and Mom was like, "Come on, Danny," you know. But it was when we had kids. It was when he had his first grandkids and realized, okay, I don't get to see these kids all the time. These are important interactions for me. I don't want to miss anything. And that was sort of what put him over the edge. And it's very common when I see somebody in my office that says, okay, you know, I've been having trouble with my hearing for a while, but I've decided to do something. It's often a major life event that drives them to that decision. And some of them are wonderful, like having grandkids, or I got remarried, that happens a lot, you know, or I got a new job, or I'm in a new role at work and I'm having to interview people. Sometimes it's much darker. It's, you know, my wife used to hear for me and now she can't because she's sick, or we're having to spend a lot of time in doctor's offices. And I don't want to be morbid or anything about that, but those are situations. It's usually something that drives that person to make that decision to realize, okay, communication is really important and this is something I need to invest my time in. It does seem like people kind of need pushed over the edge. Why is that embarrassment associated so much with hearing loss? I think a lot of that has to do with sort of the age stigma. So I think we could all say, in general, when you think the word hearing aids, we have this kind of negative connotation of the old guy that used to sit in front of me at church and his hearing aid whistled and he turned it up and he turned it down. And number one, technology is so far evolved past that now. But secondly, hearing loss is not just an aging problem. And I've mentioned this before on the show. I'm 44 and wear a hearing aid all the time. Some people are looking at him going, yeah, he's old. I'm not that old. But that's due to some genetics. It's due to some noise that I've been around. I have lots of patients in their 40s, 50s, even 30s and 20s that have some hearing loss. We think absolutely nothing about my teenage kids wearing glasses or having to wear contacts. But all of a sudden, a hearing aid kind of has this sort of different connotation. So I think there is some stigma associated with that. What I have found interesting in my practice for over 20 years, younger people tend to look at hearing technology, hearing aids, whatever. They tend to look at it just what I said, technology. I've got an iPhone that lets me be able to do all these things. I've got a computer that allows me. I've got an iPad that allows me. I've got a hearing aid that allows me to be connected, to do Bluetooth. I've got an app for my. They're looking at that technology, thinking this is really cool technology that helps me be able to do the things I want to do. then I'll get a 90-year-old that says, I don't want to get a hearing aid because it's going to make me look old. I don't say anything to that, but you know what I'm thinking, right? So anyway.
Technology has come a long way, and I want you to explain to folks at home, you don't prefer a specific model or specific brand because you say a lot of them can do the same thing.
Absolutely, and so that's a question I get every week, almost every day. Well, Dr. Gnewikow, what do you think the best brand of hearing aids is? And as I've shared before, I do have my favorites. But my favorites are not about that I can make somebody hear 98% with brand A, and then brand B you can get to about 90%, and oh, you don't want to get brand C because those are not very good. My preference for brand is more about reliability and features. You know, are they automatic? Does the automatic work well? Do they have a rechargeable battery? How can they adapt to a noisy situation? All of those things are more about features, but I'll share, there's a recent study. I promise no audiologist will ever share this on television, but I'm going to share it. There was a study that came out a few years ago, and they took the 5 best hearing aids, quote, best hearing aids on the market from the major hearing aid manufacturers. There's 5 major companies that make most of the hearing aids in the world. So they took their top of the line products and they fit them to some subjects in a research study, but didn't tell them what they were. It was a secret. That's called a double-blinded study, or a blinded study. Anyway, they fit them with this best technology, but they fit them just to what's called a first fit algorithm. So unfortunately, a lot of places when somebody gets a hearing aid, they click a button, fit it for that person, and the person goes off and tries it. Well, then they took those same subjects and they fit them with a 20-year-old set of hearing aids. But they fit them according to what we call best practices. And I've shared before, I'll be glad to share today, how hearing aids are adjusted is so much more important than the model and the brand and the cost. And so they fit them according to what we call best practices, which includes probe microphone measurements and measuring the output for speech and soft sounds and louds, just ensuring that the fit was very accurate. Well, you know what I'm going to tell you, the people did better with 20-year-old hearing aids than they did with all the brand new technology. Okay, don't all run away from the TV yet, because I'm not saying all of this hearing aid stuff is completely worthless. They brought those subjects back and then fit them with the newer technology according to all of the best fit practices that I shared, and they did do better with newer technology than older technology. But my point with that, sorry I'm ranting on that a little bit, is that I have so many patients come in, ask the question we just talked about, well, what brand is the best? I had a guy last week, I'm going to try to do this without naming any brands, but he called on the phone and he said, what brand of hearing aids do you have? And you know, I'm immediately rolling my eyes because of what we're talking about right now. And I said, well, we've got lots. Well, I've got this brand and I don't like it, so I'm going to go here because I've heard everybody likes those. Both of them were the same brand. Oh, you're kidding. They were labeled under different names, but the one that he had that he hated and the one that he was going to buy were identical hearing aids.
Oh no, were you able to stop him?
I was, and we've since kind of made some progress. He's going to try something different. We're going to see what we can do to improve it. But my point with all of this, to all you guys out there watching, is the fitting, the adjustment, the ability to interact with the patient and understand what's happening in your life, what is important to you, how do we make either the hearing aids that you have or new technology work in these different situations. That's way more important than the brand name. That's way more important than the cost. It's more about fitting them individually.
And it all starts with that first consultation, basically. Tell me what happens in your office and really what should happen in all offices if things are on the up and up.
Sure. So when we first see a patient in our office, I think the biggest thing that we do, and I hope a lot of people do, and this is true for any doctor's office, is listen. And this is not a 10-minute appointment. It's not run you through, see a technician. We schedule an hour and a half for that first visit because certainly I need to understand what your hearing is and make some measurements and rule out any medical problems and see if we need to make referrals. That's a part of the assessment process. But a bigger part of it is understanding what has driven that person to be sitting across the room from me. As we said, sometimes it's a big life event. Sometimes there are several specific needs that are frustrations for them. And I also look at that visit as a chance for our patients to interview us, meet our staff, see our office, talk to me, talk to our audiologist, and understand, okay, is this somebody that's really going to be able to help me? Is this somebody that listens? Because understanding the problem is way more important than me making a list of all the products that we have. Once we understand where the frustrations are, what certain situations somebody may be struggling with, then I think we can suggest a solution that can really be ideal for them.
And you always suggest bringing somebody with you.
Absolutely. So in fact, I've trained my staff, you know, when someone calls, ask them to bring their spouse, ask them to bring a son or daughter or a caregiver or, you know, somebody in their family, and I do that for several reasons. The first thing, you mentioned hear life, okay? Hearing affects way more than just me. And if I have hearing loss, I could probably be the person that cares the least about it, quite honest. I mean, and I don't mean that personally. I see that all the time. It's like, well, you know, I can get by, I just turn up the TV, and sometimes I sort of zone out in conversations. But for that person's spouse or son or daughter who's driven 200 miles to see dad and he can't, you know, interact with them, to the family member, it's often more troublesome, more problematic than it is to the individual that's struggling with hearing loss. So we always encourage a significant other, a spouse, a family member. The second reason we do that is I love to have two sets of ears. That sounds bad when you're an audiologist, but I love to have a family member kind of listen to our conversation, because so often, as we just talked about, the hearing loss affects them, but I cannot tell you how many times, over 100 easily, that I've sat down with a single patient in my office and explained the problem, and he'll say, can you call my wife and explain all that stuff to her? Or I wish I'd brought my husband so he could hear this. And a lot of that is because hearing loss often causes stress in relationships. You know, if I don't hear what my wife says, that can cause stress in our relationship, even if I'm really trying hard. And it can cause her stress, even if she's really trying hard to speak to me. I can get frustrated with her, vice versa. So I think it's always good to have that relationship, have the people in that relationship both hear that story. And
when they're both there and they both, you know, kind of understand the assessment and know the different options, you're not asking anybody to make a snap decision on that first meeting.
Correct, correct. So we are not the high, there's no high pressure sales, there's no sign here. I look at it as this sort of an interview process. And if I bring somebody to interview for a job, I will usually meet with them, and then they will go their way, I will go my way, then we'll meet again if we decide to move forward. And that's kind of the way I look at this visit. Lots of people, after we have a conversation, say, I am ready, what can you do to help me right now? And we can move forward with talking about hearing aids. But a lot of people say, you know what, I need to think about this, sleep on it, pray about it, whatever, and that's perfectly fine. We do not make you sign anything, or even if somebody does try hearing aids at our office, we still give them a month to try them for free. So there's no strings attached with that process. My biggest goal in what I do is to make sure that we're helping people and make sure that at the end of this process, whatever they have gone through, whether that's expense or time with us or driving to come see us, that at the end of that they see a result that is worth what they've spent to do that. Very good.
We're going to take a quick break. It's a great time to get some callers lined up. So if you have some questions and want to ask, it's free to do so. Give us a call. 615-737+ is the number. We're coming right back.